the stuff that happened, you know, in my teenage years that really took a hold of me. And I created a lot of stories about what does that mean about me. I was horrendously bullied at school, and that created some really entrenched limiting beliefs in my mind about who I was, what I was capable of. It took me a long time to untangle away from the stories that I'd created about myself. We sometimes create a cage for ourselves without even realizing. I hear people say, I'm never the type of person to do that, or other girls can do that, but I can't. They've already decided that they can't do it. And if you decide that you can't do it, whether you can or you can't, you won't do it.
So Liv, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. It's surreal to be here because we're friends. We've seen each other quite a lot recently in person, so it's strange to go back.
I know we did want to do this in person, but it hasn't worked out. So maybe at some point in the future we'll have to arrange a part 2, and we'll sit down and do it in person because that'll be really fun.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, we had a really interesting conversation a while back where I think it was like the first time we properly connected on the phone. We'd sort of shared messages on Instagram and stuff like that. And we were just talking to each other about our journeys and, you know, our journeys into coaching, personal development and stuff like that. And I was really inspired by your journey in particular and what you shared with me. And part of the reason why I wanted to bring you on board today was because I know that your story is going to be very helpful for a lot of people, not just because of what you've created in your life, but the way in which you've gone about it. So I'd love to start with that, like how you got into personal development and therefore coaching.
Big question. I'm going to have to go back through the timeline, but I think it started a long time ago, but it was very subconscious, if that makes sense. I was introduced to Buddhism at quite a young age, and my dad was really interested in it. So I was exposed to that world where the focus is, you know, compassion, acceptance, awareness, being conscious, having intention with what you're doing and how you're living your life. So I think that sat on my subconscious in my teens. And then what was interesting is later on in my very early 20s, so 2021, I rediscovered it and it came to the forefront of my mind. And I started going to the London Buddhist Centre. And well, actually, because I was actually in a little bit of a sticky situation back then in terms of I didn't really like my job, and I just felt a bit lost, quite, you know, typical of early 20s, but I just knew there was more for me out there, not because I'm special or anything like that, but as in there was more that was aligned with who I am, and my values than what I was currently doing. And that really opened the door. And then it was kind of 1% at a time, bit by bit, gradually exposing myself to more personal development. Started ordering loads of books, listening to different types of motivational speakers, different types of personal development as well. And I think that's really interesting because there are so many types. There's not like one manual of, how to find enlightenment. You know, you can go about it so many different ways. And I think that's the beauty. And that's what I love. One of the reasons why I love coaching so much is because there are so many ways to grow. There are so many ways to discover yourself, and cultivate awareness. So yeah, it just kind of went on from there, really.
I love that. I love what you said about the different ways to discover into it and the different paths. And I think what I've really experienced on my journey is that all of those different paths end up leading towards the same thing. And it's like, I had this thing recently, and I think we might have spoken about this on some level, but like had this thing recently of like, you see people online, it's like these big self-development personalities or whatever, and you're like, oh my god, I don't agree with their message that they're sharing, and I had a load of like judgment towards it. But what I've noticed recently is shifted is that I'm seeing it as like, no, actually there's a place for those messages in the world, because at a time that message would have been very helpful for me. And, you know, X many years later, I'm further along my journey. And if it wasn't for, you know, messages like that or people like that, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I think that's really powerful, is like recognizing that there isn't like a wrong way to get into personal development. There isn't a right way to get into it. It's like once you're in it, it's like, and if you stay on the path, is you keep discovering more and more and more. And what I've experienced is it only ever points to one place, which is like the truth of, like, with capital T, of like how we experience life and reality.
And that's what I say to my clients. I say, look, it's up to you to pick and choose, you know, what you want to take away from the coaching. And I always say, what I say isn't gospel, okay? And some of my personal experiences you're not going to be able to relate to, or maybe you'll be able to relate to other experience that I talk about rather than, you know, some of the other ones. So it's not like a cookie cutter blueprint of this is how you grow. And I think actually nowadays it's almost like the wellness industry has tried to make it a bit mainstream, like it's a tick box exercise. And we see it all the time, don't we, with other things? It's like that instant gratification. Oh, how can I heal as quickly as possible? You know, how can I heal my childhood trauma as quickly as possible and feel okay? And actually, the biggest thing is being okay with where you're at. And it's that very fine balance between accepting where you are, but also going after better and a different type of life if you want to, not because you should or you have to, but if you want to, because there will be many people across the world that just won't understand some of the things that I'm saying, you know, on my Instagram, especially the concepts around thoughts aren't facts and people can't necessarily create feelings within us. It's our thinking about it. I've even had messages where people are like, I just don't get it. I'm sorry. And that's okay. And it goes back to what you were saying. You know, maybe they'll be more open to it in 5 years, but they're at a different stage in their journey. So coaches that aren't talking about relationship with thought, maybe they'll be really beneficial for them. And if you can let go of kind of that need to, oh, well, my content needs to serve everyone and it needs to work for everyone, then I think you can create a lot of peace with what you're doing and where you're at. And you're probably more likely to be authentic with your content because you're not trying to, you know, just go with the trends and go with the mainstream. You know, you're creating your own river.
I think that goes for life in general, isn't it? Like you said, when you have that you get to that point of like acceptance of this is where I am right now and I'm okay with that. I can be at peace with that while still maybe wanting to discover more. Then you're not trying to like, oh, I must do like this next cool wellness thing that's popped up, or like this new cool thing for my health, or try this new diet or this new whatever out of a lack. You're doing it out of a space of like, what could I learn from that, I wonder, because I'm actually okay with where I am right now. And that's, for me, is like where I've discovered, like, the journey then goes further and my learnings get deeper and my experience expands. Who I'm being in the world expands, because the further I go on my journey, it's like the more my roots are setting into the ground. And the more that my roots set into the ground, the more I'm like not going to be shaken by like a little storm or, you know, like something happening in my life or wherever it may be, which I think is really powerful, you know.
I love that. The further your roots go into the ground, like I'm such a visual person. I'm literally imagining a tree, you know, the really old trees. And you look on the path and you're like, wow, the roots have grown all the way out there. Yeah, it's the same for human beings.
It is. So what led you towards coaching then? Like, you went on this journey via the door of Buddhism. What led you towards becoming a coach yourself?
My mum's a therapist, so I've always been exposed to that kind of field. And I think also paired with the fact that I was introduced to Buddhism from a young age, I think that really kind of accelerated my curiosity into the wellness world. And so I knew the typical jobs, like we all do, stuff like, you could be a psychotherapist, or you could be a psychologist, or, when I was small, I wanted to be a psychologist. And then it was during that period of time that I spoke about, when I felt like I didn't really like my job, and I didn't feel very fulfilled, and I just felt very lost, and I was just not very happy. I saw an advertisement for, I can't remember which organization it was, maybe the Life Coaching Academy. And it was about like a 3-day trial, to go along. So I went along, and I thought it was great, but I wanted a bit more. I wanted more philosophy, science. Like I geek out on like concepts and theories, but it's ironic because now I've moved away from that, but I still find it super interesting. And during these 3 days at this taster event, I was like, wow, this is like really great. And a couple of people said, you're a natural. Just like in the exercises, I was like asking them coaching questions, and they were like, wow, you're a natural. Have you done this before? And I was like, no, my mum's a therapist and I've always been interested in self-development. But to be honest, I didn't really know that coaching was a job, As I said, it was the typical ones that I knew. And then I moved from the job that I was in my early 20s. So I was working in recruitment, and I moved into a coaching company, but it was more corporate coaching. And from there, I was working every day with coaches, and I was exposed to that world. And every single day I'd go home and I would think, I want to be the coach. And I would watch them, and I would listen, and I would just try and be a sponge and absorb it all. And it just set this fire inside of me that just basically hasn't gone out. And I think it keeps getting bigger each year, and I don't think it will ever go out. But I do think I wanted to be a coach long before that, but it was like I was talking about earlier, it was subconscious. And then I think because I was working within the coaching industry, it was so smack in my face, like it was just so obvious. It was a truth I could not ignore. I could not ignore it any longer, and I could not deny it for myself. And I basically had nothing to lose. It was either feel like I wanted to be a coach, be scared of not making it and never try, or just giving it a go. And it's funny because my whole life, I've ended up having deep conversations with people at parties, or people will tell me things that they've never told anyone, and they'll be like, wow, like how did you get that piece of information out of me? And I was like, I don't know, I was just here, I was just talking to you. So I just wanted to explore that even more, but I was quite gentle with myself initially. I did a coaching course, but then during the second module of the coaching course, I just knew that I didn't want to do it by halves. I wanted to go full in. So then I launched my business, and from there it's been 1% at a time, really building those blocks. I'm in a position now where I've been given incredible opportunities. If I look back and told my 15-year-old self, oh yeah, so you'd be the global life coach for a huge fitness organization, you'd be doing voluntary coaching, you would have helped so many people across the world, she would have laughed and said, no, I don't think you could do that, or that life's not for you, because I didn't have a lot of self-belief back then. But now it's just fearless living. And don't get me wrong, it's not always easy at all, the opposite. But I made a vow to myself that I would do myself justice. And it's not about me failing or succeeding. It's about me helping one person at a time. And that is what gets me out of bed every single morning, knowing that people, rely on me. And it's bigger than me wanting to be liked and things like that. It's like, put out the content, coach fearlessly, face your fears, because actually you could do so much good in the world. And I don't want to let that go.
I love that. I love what you said about fearless living. No, I love that, because I think when we were talking about your journey and how like you've been really bold in what you've created for yourself with some of the opportunities that you just mentioned, right? Like working the role that you have with Club 5, some of the voluntary coaching work you're doing, some of the people that you helped across the world. Like, it really spoke to me, and not just because I'm a coach. And for anyone who's listening to this who isn't a coach, this isn't about coaching. This is about being fearless with how you're living your life. And that's how I'd want anyone to listen to this. But Liv, I'd love you to share like the story of how you created some of those opportunities with particularly the one with Club 5, but also like the voluntary coaching as well.
I must have been about 8 months in to having my business. And I followed someone, I'm not sure if I can say her name on here, but I followed Talila Henshaw. So she owns Club 5. And I followed her because I loved her energy, and I felt like she was doing things a little bit differently to the PTs that I'd been following on Instagram. So it was a lot more about mental health. It was a lot more about, balance the work of, the body with the mind, because obviously the body and the mind are interlinked. So you can't really work on one without the other. Otherwise, you're always going to be a little bit worse off. And I saw that she was speaking about therapy to her followers on Instagram. And I thought, I love that, because that requires a level of vulnerability, and that really aligns with my values. And I'm just not seeing that in other PTs. It's not to throw shade on them, but I still don't think mental health is spoken about a lot in the fitness world. It's very aesthetics focused. So after a while, I remember where I was. I remember where I was when I sent the message. It's just so random. I was lying in the bath, and I'd just done a really deep meditation. And I was lying in the bath, and I came out of meditation. And I thought, I'm going to message her. I'm literally just going to send her a message and tell her what I think of what she's doing as an acknowledgement. So I did. I sent her a message and I said, hey, I absolutely love how you're showing up on this platform. I love what you're talking about. Well done for talking about mental health, and you've just admitted that you're going to therapy. I think that's so good, because if you're vulnerable and you're open, it also gives others permission to do the same. And that's what Brené Brown talks about. She's like, vulnerability creates vulnerability. Love Brené Brown. So I was just really honest. And then we just got chatting a little bit. And I said, look, I'm a coach. I coach people all across the world. The things that I see the most come up are fear, anxiety, limiting beliefs, worried about what people think. These are things that you are talking about on your page. I'd love to just coach some of your followers for free, or, just coach some of the members, because I think it's super important. So I basically just put that out there. And then she said, okay, I like the sound of this. Can you send, a video and a bio and stuff to the email? So I did that the next day. And then we jumped on a Zoom call about a week later, and I coached her. So she saw it firsthand. And that, I think, is why she believed in it from the beginning, because she had felt the effects herself personally from the time that I coached her. Because I could easily sit here and go, yeah, my coaching is X, Y, Z, it's this, that, and the other. But that's not going to really mean anything unless you've experienced it for yourself. And I think that is so powerful. So the fact that I coached her and I said, look, I'd love to coach you for a couple of sessions. So we did. And she won't mind me saying this because she talks about it openly on her page. And then afterwards, she was like, I can't tell you the value that I got from that. It was incredible. I want my members to experience what I've just experienced. And I was like, yes, this is exactly, you know, what I wanted. I want to help as many people as possible. And so then I just started working for the company for a month. We did a bit of a trial. I created some content videos to see how they landed with the members. And it just blew up, really. It just blew up. And I think what I was speaking about was so relevant to what they were going through. And I genuinely do care about everyone that I coach. I'm not in it for the money. I'm not in it for anything like that. Like, you know, potential status, like couldn't care less. But I've always said, you know, if I can help one person at a time, then I feel as though I'm doing the coaching industry justice and myself. And then from there, it's escalated and, you know, the opportunities got bigger and I've coached so many of the members and I've appeared at, you know, events. I've done loads of lives. I've created God knows how many videos for them. I'm going to record. I've got to do one after this, actually. And yeah, you just kind of become integrated into the community. You become a bit of a pillar, just like the other incredible sports coaches that are under Club 5 as well. And that's how it's gone. And I'm very curious to know, you know, what else is there within that community for me. Yeah.
I love it. I love it so much because it's like, because you know what it is? The way that I see it is like, you saw, I'm getting emotional speaking of it, but you saw the value that you could bring to other people, and you were like, wait, if I can bring this value to other people, why am I not going to offer my service? You didn't say, hey, look, can you pay me? Can you like, I want to be part of the company, can you, like, you know, incorporate? You were like, I think I can help, like, I'd love to just like work with some of the members. And it's like, you're just giving from a place of love. And I love that because it's like, you know that there's value there, and it's not like an ego thing, you know. And I know that because I know you. It's not an ego thing. It's not like, oh, I'm so good at what I do, like, of course you're going to want to hire me. It's like, no, like, let me just see if I can help. And if it helps, then yeah, we can talk about continuing. And that's so powerful. And again, it's like, there's so many aspects of that isn't just about coaching. That's like a value to live life by. Like, if you can add value to someone or to something or to a moment with the gifts and the skills that you have as a person, go and offer those gifts to that moment, to that situation, to that thing, you know, just out of love, not because you want to get anything from it, just from a place of love. And that's like, oh man, literally tears in my eyes. I don't know if you can see them. They're probably on the camera, but it's all good. So powerful.
Thank you. There was no expectation, honestly. Like, you know, Alex knows me quite well, and he knows that with me, like, what you see is what you get. Like, I've never believed in being two-faced. I despise you know, people who live their life, you know, very two-faced. Well, I don't despise, it's very strong, but I wouldn't want to live my life that way. And for me, there was no expectation of this turning into something, you know, big. Honest to God, like, I remember lying in the bath. This is mad. I remember lying in the bath and thinking, wouldn't it be cool if I could coach just one of the members? Like, how crazy is that? Like, just one. Like, honestly, I'd be happy with just one. And I had no expectation. And when I coached Talila, again, there was no expectation. I didn't put any pressure on myself. I thought, do you know what? Just live into this experience, right here, right now. Like, you don't know what's going to happen to you in 2 months' time. Maybe this is all that it will be. And you know what? Sometimes you have to be okay with that in business. And that's a lesson that I've learned running my own business. You have to be okay with some things just not working out, some things not going your way. You know, some months are better than others. You make mistakes. You have to be okay with it, because otherwise you're just resisting what is. You're just in resistance the whole time. So I think the big thing for me that I've carried through as a learning from that experience to now, because it's been just over a year since I've worked with them, is having very little expectation about how something's going to go, you know, whether someone's going to work with me or not. And I think you can carry that across lots of aspects of life, right? Relationships, friendships, I don't know, your own healing as well. You know, I embarked in a lot of coaching for myself last year, and I think I had an expectation when I started that I would feel quite differently quite quickly, and things would change quite quickly for me. It was a long old process, you know, and it's still ongoing, and I'm okay with that. But also not having expectations in life. I'm not talking about, you know, never going above and beyond and never going after your dreams, you know, just sit at home all day. It's not about that. What I'm trying to get at here is, you know, it's okay to see things as they are and to just accept them as they are, because also things change a lot. We've spoken about this before, haven't we? You know, that maybe, or that no could actually be a blessing in disguise. That rejection, you know, I don't know who's listening to this, but say maybe, you know, your partner has dumped you, or someone that you were dating has ghosted you. In the immediate moment, you feel all these emotions and you go, this is so bad. This is, or no, I'm so upset. You know, we instantly go to the negative, but you have no idea what that no or that rejection, or, you know, maybe rejected from that job, you have no idea what's next in store for you.
One of my favorite sayings from Steve Chandler, who's for anyone who doesn't know who he is, he's like a really well-known coach of coaches. And he says this in a coaching perspective, but this goes across all areas of life, and it goes to what you were just saying, is like, no lives in the land of yes. And it's like every time you receive a no, it's just bringing you closer to the next yes. And I've really seen that in like relationships. It's like, you know, you get a no or you get a rejection and you feel like, oh my God, like my life is over, like this person's rejected me. But like, if that wasn't the case, then I wouldn't be with my girlfriend now, who I'm very, very happy with. You know, same with jobs. It's the amount of interviews and jobs that I went for that I didn't hear back from, or got a no from, or whatever. If I didn't get those no's, I wouldn't have had some of the jobs that I had, like working at the BBC, working for One Extra, working at Spotify, you know, etc. Like I wouldn't have had all of those experiences. And it's like, we can never forget the power of a no in opening us up to the next opportunity or the next possibility or the next yes. And that's amazing. And it's like having that I guess like zoomed out perspective on like, okay, right now this no feels really like, oh my God. But in the long term, you don't know what that no actually really means for you until 5 years down the line, where you can look back on it and go, oh, okay, so that was a no, but then a yes happened here and that led me to this, and then I got to and you can connect the dots a bit more. It's only with hindsight really that you can appreciate it.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think, do you know what? That's one of the most like magical things of life, about life, is we don't really know what's in store for us. sure, we can try and do everything in our power and everything possible to create the life that we want, but actually some things just come into our life and we're a bit like blindsided by them and like, what, you know, like some of the things that have happened since me launching my business, you know, I would never have thought that that would have been possible for me that quickly. And it's not coming from a place of ego, it's just coming from a place of just remaining open and being curious. But I also think like putting yourself in opportunities where you do have a shot of living the life that you want. I think that's really important, because I could have very easily have stayed in the job that I was in before I was a coach, you know, and kind of just like tutored along, you know, had the regular salary, maybe progress up the ladder, who knows? But we have to take these risks in life. We have to, even though they're so scary at the time, and you think, I feel like I'm going to die, you know, if I do this. Like I was even saying to Alex before we started recording, I was like, this is a bit weird. Like I feel so nervous about coming on the podcast. And I've spoken to lots of people on podcasts and stuff, and I was like, I feel so nervous. You know, maybe the me 7 years ago would have gone, no, sorry, can't do it. You know, my emotions are just too much. I would have fed into that emotion of, I'm too scared, I'm too scared. But we have to remember that fear fades. Fear fades, but you'll never get that experience back, you know? If I wasn't to do this podcast, the fear would fade like tomorrow or tonight or whatever. But then you've lost an opportunity to put yourself in the firing line of what you want. It's not even, it's success. It's just living life on your terms, essentially.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Fear fades, because it's just a feeling. It's just a thought that you have, like, oh no, I'm nervous about this, and then the feeling is like fear, but that's just a momentary thing. Like where's that nervousness or where's that fear now? It's not there. It's already faded, you know. And it's like remembering that in any moment for me has been really powerful. No matter the experience, no matter the feeling that I have, knowing that that is just a temporary thing. It's not even the truth of what I'm experiencing. It's just my interpretation of the experience based on the story that I've, you know, now inputted into this blank experience. I'm inputting my own story, which is creating the felt experience that I have. It's just like waking up to that is so powerful, because it makes you you can take those steps back and be like, oh yeah, like I'm a bit nervous now, or I'm a bit scared now, but actually I probably won't be once we start, or I probably won't be once I do the thing, or once I make the moves, or whatever it is, you know.
That's a big insight that I've been working with for a long time, actually, is that actually nothing defines you. You know, your past doesn't define you. Even your identity, you know, fluctuates. Nothing really defines you. When you strip back all of that, you're just left with like consciousness. And I think what you were saying, Alex, was really interesting about like the stories that we place on things, or, you know, before we've even given ourselves a chance to paint the canvas, or like, you know, put our artistic design on it, we're putting loads of colors on it that, you know, we already know, or maybe we're like drawing something that we already know, rather than going, hang on, let's just wipe the slate clean and start again, you know, start afresh, look at life through a curious lens. And there have been so many things that have happened in my life when I was younger that could have quite easily broken me. And don't get me wrong, they did for a long time. There's stuff that happened, you know, in my teenage years that really, they really took a hold of me, and I created a lot of stories about what does that mean about me, because I went through that. I was horrendously bullied at school, the first school I went to, and that created some really entrenched limiting beliefs, in my mind about who I was, what I was capable of, you know, what kind of life I deserved. It took me a long, long time to untangle away from the stories that I'd created about myself. Yeah. And we sometimes create a cage for ourselves without even realizing. Like the amount of times that I hear people say, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I'm never the type of person to do that. Or no, like, you know, other girls can do that, but I can't. They've already decided that they can't do it. They've already decided. And if you decide that you can't do it, whether you can or you can't, you won't do it.
I hear that. I'd love to hear like what's shifted for you around that, because I know we both attended the same coaching retreat last month, and you put yourself in the firing line quite a lot, and there was a lot of deep conversations that happened. So I'd love to know like what insights or what shifted for you around that kind of experience of bullying that you just mentioned, and the limiting beliefs that you've kind of have been living with.
For a long time, I had created a story about, I guess, who I was in my head. And I think that stopped me from playing big in life. Since experiencing the bullying up until, I don't know, I'd say 4 years ago, I really, really suffered with like chronic anxiety. And I still suffer with anxiety, but it's something different. It just feels so much lighter. And also self-confidence, self-belief. I really struggled with my image, really negative self-talk. And I was making what happened to me over those 2-3 years of being badly bullied, I was making it mean a whole lot about who I am in the present moment. And actually, that was a long time ago. And I can choose to divorce that part of my life and not make it mean something about who I am now. Because otherwise, the sad thing about that is you almost relive it again every single day. You know, it happened a long time ago. And it happened for like 2-3 years, a long time ago when I was 12. And I mean like really badly bullied. But if I was to carry all of that into my life now, I'm suffering again and again and again. You know, it's not just those 2-3 years of suffering, it turns into almost a lifetime of suffering. And that's really sad, you know, when you think about it, because there will be people out there that are still reliving their past over and over again. It doesn't turn into, it's not 3 years of bullying. If I let it, it could turn into 80 years. And I decided that I'm no longer going to live in fear, and I'm no longer going to let these truths, and for those of you who are listening on audio, I've just done truth in inverted commas, dictate who I am in the present, because my life is so different now. It's entirely different. And I refuse to be shackled and chained to an experience that actually, now looking back, it wasn't about me. I was just the odd one out because I had incredibly fair features, bright red hair, and I guess low confidence. You know, it's almost like easy pickings. I'm not that girl anymore. So yeah, that's a huge realization. And also, just because something was true a long time ago does not mean that it's true now in the present moment. Like, time has moved on so much, but our minds They convince us that we're almost still at threat. We are still threatened by what was threatening us back then, but it's not the case. Like, I think we all need to remember that anyone who's listening to this, where they've gone through something really, really bad when they were younger, and now they are out of that situation and their life is entirely different, please remind yourself that you are safe. You are now safe. You're no longer in that situation anymore. Remind your mind that you are safe, because sometimes it forgets. You know, it's going off that fight or flight. It's going off that primal instinct.
Yeah. Do you know what? I love what you said about that 3 years of bullying could turn into 80 years of bullying. And the crazy thing about that is that 77 years of that would be mind created. Not the actual what happened then. It's the mind recreating it and reliving it now. And that's crazy, because like when you can see through that and start to free yourself from it, like, you know, I had a lot of stuff in my life around like being depressed, and I hung on to that for a long time of like, oh well, depression is just a part of my life, it's just who I am, it's just chemical imbalance in my brain and all of this stuff. And I would dip into it and then come out of it, and dip back into it and come out of it. And it's like when I started to see that actually I'm just holding on to that narrative that's creating the experience. So if I continue to do that, of course it's going to keep happening again and again and again and again and again and again. Whereas once I've seen through that, it's just like the depression, severe depression that I had 10 years ago plus was just something that happened in a moment in time, and that's it. Doesn't have to mean that I need to experience it again now, the less that I've had those moments. And I'd love to hear from you, like, what's changed for you since you started to let go of some of that suffering around what happened to you, you know, many, many years ago?
I'm a lot kinder to myself. And I think I didn't realize how much I disliked myself for so long until I started to look in that direction. And I've worked really hard to get to the place that I am today, mentally, physically. I'm not talking about my business. I'm talking about me existing as a human being on the planet. And I had to relearn what it meant to be nice to myself and be friendly to myself and love myself. It sounds so cliche, and anyone who knows me knows that I don't do fluffy coaching at all. Like, in fact, I'm anti-fluffy coaching. Alex knows that. But I really had to give myself permission to become friends with myself again. And also, you know, get to know the person that I am without all of those stories that I was creating. I needed to get to know her, the girl who wasn't attached to fear every second of her life, the girl who wasn't existing from a place of chronic anxiety. I needed to get to know her without all of those strings that were attached to the past. Also, what happened was I realized that I deserved a lot more from myself and others. So yeah, I started to have, you know, better relationships. I had started to have better friendships, a better relationship with my family. I took a risk on myself and started my business. I would say yes to opportunities that back then I would have said no to, because maybe I didn't think I could do it, or I wasn't worthy of it, or I didn't deserve it, or I wouldn't be good enough. There's a classic one, you know, good enough. I hear that all the time. If you don't heal the am I good enough, it will crop up in every single aspect of your life. And that's not me being dramatic, but that's me living that personally, and also seeing that with lots of other people. So yeah, a lot started to shift when I let go of the suffering. I think also because I wasn't so consumed and weighed down with suffering, suddenly I was opening myself up to like other opportunities that were more aligned to me. So suddenly I was having, meeting people that are actually more suited for me, like, romantically, friendship as well. I've got some incredible friends in my life now, incredible. And some of my best friends, I've only known for like 2 years, 3 years. I've still got friends from, when I was younger and stuff, but the less that you hold on to the past, the more engaged you are with the present. And when you're engaged with the present moment, you are open to receiving what's there for you. But you have to put yourself into the position where you're open to receiving it. There's that incredible story. I don't think it's a story. It's more like a parable, or I don't know how to say it. And this guy, he prays to God every night. He goes, please, please, can I win the lottery? Please, God, can I win the lottery? And he does this every single night. And then God turns around on the 7th night and goes, please, please buy a ticket. And I love that so much, because it's like, you can wish for a better life, but if you are not taking your own action and putting yourself in situations where you are open to receiving a better life, it's going to be a slow process. You're going to make life really hard for yourself.
I love that. Something you just said there, I can't remember what it was, but it was absolute gold. In just like, basically, with the way I heard it was like, you can't keep believing yourself to be that person and not having the belief or the faith in yourself, because it keeps cropping up. And it's so powerful. And it's like when we keep, and I love this topic, I could talk about this for all day, but like when we keep buying into the past, it's like we're buying into something that no longer exists. It's like it actually doesn't exist anymore. Like physically it doesn't exist. So it only exists in our minds as a thought, as a memory. So it takes our active participation in those thoughts and those memories to bring it alive again, so that we then recreate the feelings and the experience that we had. But even that, like, we're not really ever like experiencing what we experienced back then. We're just experiencing our memory of what we thought it was like. So it's still not even factual, And it's like, when we really dive into that, it's like, yeah, the mind's just trying to keep us safe. It's just, that's the mind's job. The mind's job primarily, when the mind evolved 200,000 years ago, whatever it was to keep us safe. Oh, there's some rustling in the bush over there. Could be a saber-toothed tiger. Maybe I should run and get to high ground and get to safety. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Okay, I'm going to go do that. And then you do it and you're safe. That was kind of, the mind was doing that most of the time. Whereas now, it tries to keep us safe. But from what? We haven't got many like, physical, what's the word I'm looking for? Like things that are going to harm us. Dangers. There's not many physical dangers. There's a few, don't get me wrong. I don't want to discount some, but there's not many. So the mind's trying to keep us safe around stuff that no longer exists, or stuff that isn't actually like that much of a threat, like stressing about, am I going to get my to-do list done? Even if you don't, you're not going to die. You're still going to be here. You're still going to be safe. You're still going to be okay. Let's not stress about it too much. We probably both know that one. And there's a bunch of stuff where that comes up, and it's like I said, it takes our active participation in that to make it a reality, and particularly when it comes to stuff from the past, it takes us actively like pulling something from the past, bringing it into the present, and then like reliving that experience. It's just, it's needless in some ways,
I love that so much. Yeah. And what you said about like the way that you remember it isn't even factual, because the mind plays tricks. The ego plays tricks. So you might be remembering something in a certain way, but the way that you remember it is because of the lens. It's like a camera. You know, you can get an iPhone and the lens is like this, right? But if I put a fisheye lens on it, even though I'm holding the camera at the same image, it's going to look completely different. It's not the camera, it's not the image, it's the lens. And that is so key. And that's why I love coaching. And that's why I love helping people, and not even helping people, but that makes it sound like they need help. I don't believe that anyone needs help, is broken or needs fixing. But it's so important, I think, to understand our lens. What are we projecting onto the present? I see this all the time in relationships. I've done this many times. I've projected stuff from the past onto the current relationship, you know, being worried about things that are not existing in the present moment in this current relationship, but maybe they existed in the past. But the mind can't tell the difference between the past and the present moment. It doesn't realize that time has gone by. It doesn't realize that a different person is sat in front of you, or this is a different job, or this is a different friendship, or, you know, whatever. It's going off that like primal instinct, like threat, like what you were saying. So it's really crucial to get to know, all right, what's my lens made up of? And that's hard work. And I'm never going to sit here and say that it's easy to do that, because you have to face the truth. And I think as humans, sometimes we don't really like looking at the truth dead in the eye. You know, sometimes we'd rather numb or zone out. But I'm telling you, it's the best thing that you could ever do for yourself.
I heard someone describe it once as like, when you look at the truth, or when you discover the truth, it's almost like that example you gave of like the camera, what you're taking the photo of, and the lens that you apply. It's like the truth is like whatever lens you're looking at the image through is how you're going to experience it. But it's like that's almost too simple for the mind to comprehend. It's like it insults our intelligence. It's like, no, it can't be that simple. And then the mind will fill in the gap of like, no, it must be because of this, or because of that, or because of this, or this, or this thing that happened, or that thing that happened. But it's like, actually the simplicity of it is insulting to our intellect. Our ego doesn't like it. And that's why it feels so hard. Whereas like when you actually see, like, the truth is like, oh, I'm experiencing something in this way because the lens that I'm applying to it right now is this. There's nothing really you need to do with that information other than understand it. And when you rest in that understanding, it frees you up to see how that is playing its role in every moment, in every area of your life. And that's when you start seeing through the stories. And
that really is the start of the access point that becomes an access point to peace, or feeling content. Like you said, you don't necessarily have to do anything with it. You just have to understand how your mind is naturally working. If you get to know your lens, then at least when it starts to happen and maybe you're projecting, you go, oh yeah, okay, this is the thing that I've been working on. This is happening. And someone once said to me, they said, what do I, with overthinking, they were like, what do I do? Like, I need to do more in order to overthink less. And I said, the key is to do less. Do you see that overthinking, you're doing a lot, making a lot of assumptions, you're projecting a lot, you're in your head a lot. The irony is we're like, must do more so that I feel okay. And it's like, actually, the key with this is to do less.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's so simple, right? And our mind's like, I don't understand. Does not compute. It's
like, what? This can be a thing in life? It's like, takes a lot of practice, but yeah, it can.
It's amazing. But yeah, Liv, like, I've loved this conversation, and I really want to appreciate you for taking the time out and sharing some of your story and your journey with us. It's been amazing to hear, you know, on a personal level, but especially in this episode, like how much is changing for you, and how much will continue to change, and the way in which you show up is inspiring to me, and I'm sure that, you know, anyone who's listened to this is going to get a lot of inspiration out of it for themselves. So do you want to let people know how they can find you online, keep up to date with what you're doing? You've just started your own podcast.
Thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you to anyone who's listening and they've made it through to the end. So you can find me on Instagram at OA_coaching. So the letter O, the letter A _coaching. I do have a podcast coming out, but it's not launched yet. But by the time this episode has aired, it actually might have launched. So that's called Life Lessons, and that's going to be available on Spotify. So I'll get Alex to put a link there. But Instagram is the main one that I use. I'm always uploading new content. If you liked what we spoke about today, this is what I talk about regularly on Instagram. There's a whole mix of content. I don't have one kind of niche. It's everything. And the company that I was talking about is called Club 5, and I'm the mindset coach for them. So if you like health and fitness, give them a follow too, because they are great. They're really doing some cool stuff in an industry where sometimes the focus can be a little bit off now and again.
I love that. Thank you again, Liv, for the time. And yeah, like she said, if you like this conversation, then definitely go and check out her Instagram. You know, that's how I found you, was like discovered you through Instagram. I was like, this someone is talking real stuff right here. And it's only got better over time as well. So yeah, I really want to appreciate you for that. And yeah, I'm already looking forward to part 2, baby.
Yeah, it's the thing now. We're going to do it.
We will, 100%.